Jim Jordan of Ohio falling short a second time. There's a growing push by some to expand the power and authority of the Speaker Pro Tem Patrick McHenry, which could lead the House forward and pass legislation. Now, given the stakes with Israel at war and government funding set to expire next month, few wish to see a paralyzed Congress. But what precedent would this set? And are there some aspects of this that are not quite evident that could be a problem? Joining me now to discuss this and more, Ken Klukowski, former senior counsel in Civil Rights Division of the U.S. Department of Justice and former special counsel in the White House Office of Management and Budget. He has also litigated constitutional cases in the U.S. Supreme Court. Ken, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Thanks so much for having me, Tony.
So walk our viewers and listeners through what's being proposed as kind of a stopgap approach to not having a speaker by expanding the authority of the temporary speaker, Patrick McHenry.
That's right. A handful of establishment Republicans brought forth a measure with Congressman David Joyce of Ohio in the lead, where they said, in fact, let me take a quick step back. The position of Speaker Pro Tem doesn't show up in the Constitution. But after 9/11, there was concerns about continuity of government in the event that there would be a massive terrorist strike in our nation's capital. What happened if the U.S. House became crippled due to a lack of leadership? And so they established the position of Speaker Pro Tem, who would have only the power to facilitate the process for electing a new speaker, and then could also handle minor administrative issues for the House as well, just housekeeping duties. And so that position has been around for 20 years. And with the House currently without a leader, that's where some members who have not been supporting Ohio's Jim Jordan for Speaker said, well, maybe we can just pass a resolution that would vest some or even all of the powers of the Speaker's office in Patrick McHenry as President Pro Tem and just make him a full-fledged acting Speaker for however many weeks or months it takes to actually elect a permanent Speaker. So that's how this came about.
So, but is there the authority to actually do that?
Absolutely not. Now, under House rules, the House can adopt rules to manage its own affairs. However, whenever the U.S. Constitution speaks about some aspect of what the House or the Senate can do, obviously the Constitution controls because it's the supreme law of the land. And Article 2, Section 1, Clause 6 of the Constitution says that if the office of president is vacant, if something happens to the president, and if something also happens to the vice president, that Congress can, by law, not by rule, but by law, can pass a law saying who shall be the acting president until such time as a new president has been duly elected. And that would mean after the next presidential election. Congress did pass such a law. The most recent one was the Presidential Succession Act of 1947, which was also amended after we created the Department of Homeland Security. And under the Presidential Succession Act, it says after the president and the vice president, then comes the Speaker of the House, then the President Pro Tem of the Senate, and then the officers of the president's cabinet in order of how old their department is. So starting with the Secretary of State, which was the first department created by the first Congress, all the way up to the Secretary of Homeland Security. But the statute specifies the Speaker of the House. So the law says it has to be the duly elected Speaker to be in the presidential line of succession.
So there would be...
there's nothing the House can do by rule to the contrary.
So if they put just having someone there temporarily, they would not be in line for the presidency.
That's exactly right. So it means right now there are 18 people in the presidential line of succession, and only one of them is a Republican, and that's the Speaker of the House, because the House is controlled, at least to some degree, by Republicans. By taking the speakership out of the line, things would go from Vice President Kamala Harris to Democrat Senator Patty Murray, who's the president pro tem in the Senate, and then would go to Biden's cabinet, who, of course, are all Democrats who share his agenda. So this measure would take the GOP entirely out of the presidential line of succession.
So bad idea. They should go ahead and work to come up with a consensus candidate and select a speaker for the House of Representatives.
Yeah, bad idea to try doing an end run around the Constitution. Instead, Congress just needs to properly elect a true Speaker of the House. And of course, Jim Jordan is the Speaker designate who has been put forward by the majority party.
All right, Ken Klukowski, always great to see you. Thanks so much for filling us in on this.